Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Jump In podcast with me, your host, John Thomas, here in Philadelphia. And I'm excited. Again, what can I tell you? We've had an extraordinary week that has just completed. I'm very glad to be getting ready to talk about. What can I tell you? So it begins again. Another NFL season has begun. Preliminary activities have taken place as far as free agency. We've also had the combine for new potential athletes, and the NFL draft just happened this past week, which is exciting. You know, and if you've listened to any of the earlier episodes of this podcast, especially the ones back in January, you'd know that I'm a huge supporter of the National Football League and a diehard, what can I say, I bleed green hashtag fan of the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. It seems like it was just a minute ago that we were just celebrating the victory parade here in Philadelphia for that championship. And it's been amazing just basking in the glory of being NFL champions. And just like that, we're right back to it. Like I said, the NFL Combine, where the GMs, scouts, and the media all spend a few days evaluating talent and measuring the performance of collegiate athletes who declared themselves eligible for this year's draft. And then, like I said, last week, there were 3 days they met consecutively, for the National Football League draft, which each team selecting up to 10 of the best performing athletes that they think they had found that they believe will help to build their organization into a competitive and ultimately championship franchise. And my Eagles are no different. We're excited about the choices they make. But, what it got me to really, thinking about this week, as I was sharing with different people and folks were just asking for feedback around what I thought, I said, maybe this is an opportunity for me to share, some tips and tools around what it means to be a very high performer. And so, again, we're going to talk about performance. And I'll share with you some of the things that I've learned about performance being a professional coach of people in their life, in their business, and their relationships. But, if you're someone who's, you're looking to take on being a high performer in your life or in your career, or even, making sure the relationships that you are in are effective, then you want to listen and take notes as I share what I consider some of the best tips or traits on how to become a high performer. Now, you first have to know, what distinguishes a high performing person, right? So I'll just share with you where I come from with it, right? My high performing individuals, when I think about high performing individuals, these are people that achieve their goals and improve the companies or the businesses that they build or the companies they work for. And there are people who recognize them as being accountable, they recognize as being skilled, and they're able to get things done. And so, again, if that's you, if you're working to improve your professional abilities to do those things, and you want to be perceived as a strong asset to your organization or your business, then you may be interested in finding out how to become a top performing individual. In this week's episode of the Jump In podcast, I'm going to discuss what a high performer is, why they matter, and I'll share what I consider 9 of the characteristics or traits of high performers. And then we'll go into and deal with some of the really effective tips that I can give you to help you become a high performer, either at your work or your business or wherever you choose to take it on. And then I'll answer some of the most frequently asked questions that I get about high performance. And so, let's jump in. So, what is a high performer? Well, in my definition, a high performer is someone who goes above and beyond to achieve their goals and complete the task or their tasks, their assignments at work, right? This is the type of person that takes initiative and focuses on improving their habits and behaviors so that they or the company they work for or their teams can benefit from their actions. They're also considerate team players. And those who are in, supervisory roles, or they're leading those people, their superiors and colleagues can count on them. And they often take on more work and leadership tasks than their role requires. Now, what makes for a high performer? Well, let's look at the statistics, right? There was a recent Indeed study conducted by Decipher Focus Vision, right? And they looked at employers, and they asked employers what attribute their highest performer exemplified the most. And the top 5 answers were problem solving, which they define as the ability to define a problem and then determine and implement a solution. Another one was communication. And that's, people who effectively convey their ideals to others. The third was self-direction. And, someone who's a self-starter, someone who initiates new assignments and challenges. They also listed drive, which they define as the desire to succeed, or a person that goes above and beyond what's asked of them. They also took into consideration and studied adaptability or flexibility. And that's just the individual's ability to be flexible in a changing environment and take on new tasks. So why is retaining high performers important? Well, if you're in business, right, high performers are better for business because they tend to drive a disproportionate amount of the impact in their workplace. So in that same study I researched, he found that 10% of productivity comes from the top 1% of their employees. And 26% of the output of that business is a product of the top 5%. Now, that same study also found that top performers tend to be 4 times as productive as the average worker. So, high performing employees will also impact the company's culture, as they're more likely to choose a new job based on the company's reputation and opportunities for meaningful work. So if you are someone who, you either hire or looking to hire people to join your business or your organization or your company, or you're the person who is in that company looking to elevate their performance, then I'm going to share with you what I see are the 9 qualities of high performers. And they're pretty much those 9 and attributes of people who perform well in the workplace. And so as I share them with all of you who are watching this, or listening to this podcast, you can start to distinguish whether you actually are operating as a high performing individual. And if not, you'll know where you may need to work, or to the areas to improve, to elevate the areas where you're falling short. Now, the first quality of a high performer is that a high performer focuses on their goals, right? And what do I mean? Well, as I said, top performing individuals focus their time and their energy on their goals. They may start each week and each day by just assessing their personal and professional expectations and aspirations, and then aligning their workplace behavior accordingly. When facing a sales related or task related decision, they base their response on whether the choice will help them reach their goals. And they're centering their daily actions and decisions around this ideal helps people prepare for performance reviews and evaluations. The second trait, a high performer, is someone that keeps a positive demeanor. If you want to be a top performer, and if you know people who are top performers, then they are people who have good people skills and are positive when interacting with others. Now, this applies when they're speaking with a superior or a team member or someone that reports to them. High performers know that a person's attitude affects their environment. And this is why when they're assigned a challenging task, they don't complain. Rather, they stay positive, focus on what needs to happen to overcome whatever the challenges that they're being asked to take on. And additionally, when they're working with team members or other colleagues, they exude that positivity and try to influence others to do the same. Third trait, a high performer will show consistent effort. If you want to be someone that's a top performing employee or at your work or in your business, you're going to be someone that's reliable and always gives your best effort. High performers, they have a well-developed work routine and work ethic, and they have a positive workplace habits, right? Other people can always count on them to complete their tasks and achieve their goals. And their consistent and regular effort is professional and offers other employees something to really strive for. The fourth trait, a high performer is a strong skill set, or they has a strong skill set. A person's workplace skill set refers to whatever their technical knowledge or subject expertise is, as well as their interpersonal and relational abilities. Top performing employees or individuals are highly capable and they're skilled in both personal and professional, interpersonal and relational abilities. They are strong problem solvers who work very well with other people, and their industry related ability and flexibility help them to perform well under pressure. The fifth trait, a high performer accepts constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is designed to help people to improve. And top performers in the workplace are able to accept constructive criticism and any feedback very well. They focus their energy on remembering the benefits of receiving that type of feedback. And they take into consideration who the person is that's offering their advice and opinions. And they try to grow from them. Now, when you're receiving feedback, and you're a top performer, try not to take things personally. Instead, top performers will ask engaging questions to make sure they understand how to make improvements that they're being suggested. They also make proactive steps and plans to act on the suggested improvements. And finally, a top performer realizes that the time a superior or their boss or anyone or business owner takes to offer whatever constructive criticism is an investment in their own success. So it really does come down to the context in which you take the communication or the criticism that's being given to you. If you take criticism as a negative, then you're always going to find yourself, in a very low performing attitude. But like I said, top performers, for this reason, they'll always express their gratitude when they get that kind of feedback that they need, because they know it's going to help them to elevate the games that they play. The sixth trait, a high performer looks for professional growth opportunities. They look for that. Professional growth includes continuing education. It includes skill-based training. It includes doing research in addition and looking at additional responsibilities. Top performing individuals are always seeking out these types of career or professional development opportunities, because they know that attending any workshops or seminars can help them gain skills, qualifications, and confidence to perform better at work or in their business. Now, here's a list of just, 7 things that I can recommend that a person can do to grow, to develop professionally. And the first one, of course, is going to be a little bit of a self-interest on my part, because I'm always going to be the person who says, if you want to grow and develop yourself professionally, I invite you to find a mentor or a coach. Again, we're here to provide our skill and our ability, and again, give each and every person that we take on the opportunity to glean from that experience so they don't have to learn or start from scratch. Or you could read industry related books, again, learning your craft from people who have already done it before you and they've taken the time to put that knowledge into written form or on an ebook or over, however you choose to read. But you want to start to become an avid reader. Okay. And then other ways you can learn and grow is enroll in webinars and seminars. I spent over 10 plus years training and developing myself in, personal and professional development with a top-notch company. And that work, has paid off dividends in the career that I've chosen. It actually created the career that I'm in for me to do that. And so again, I can't stress enough that, looking for seminars or webinars that are in your career or in your field, or will give you the skills that you can help elevate your performance, then take on those opportunities. And in some cases, you want to look for opportunities where you can earn an in-demand certificate. If your job is a Six Sigma or some other opportunity that, you need a specific skill set and only a few people have it, then you should be one of those people. Because if you're a top performer or a high performer, you're looking for opportunities to add to your credentials, add to your credibility, or both. And another way you can do that is to participate in a workshop. If there are opportunities, like I said, for you to show up in person and learn from some of the people who've already done what you've done, or can give you their experience and their skills for a few hours of you participating in workshops, then you should look to do that. And then another easy way is to ask for feedback from a colleague or a manager who you know is doing the kind of work or the high level work that you're trying to achieve. And then last but not least, in those 7 items that will help you to develop your skill as a performer, is participate in whatever your industry's related online community. I'm a part of several different online communities for not just coaches, but I also, have businesses that run short-term rentals. So I'm on those groups. I'm also someone that, uh, does all kinds of consulting work. So I'm inside of a consulting maven. These are things that I've put myself in the communities around with other people who are in the industry so that I might glean from them. Peer learning is a big deal for me. And so again, opportunities for you to engage with others in an online community will help you to become a very high performer. And then the last few traits of a high performer, number 7, is a high performer offers respect to all people. Now, this is the type of individual that knows that it's important to offer respect to everyone they work with, regardless of their title or their position. They're courteous to people and they're considerate. They say hello to other people and they smile while they're doing it. So top performers at work listen attentively when people speak to them, and they are affirming and kind. So, you want to be someone that, you're going to show your respect and be someone that shows the respect for others by using language that's inclusive and accepting. And top performers, they try to lift others up by being polite and helpful. Number 8, a high performer acts like a leader, all the time. A person who is a leader in their workplace or in their business is someone who uses their skills and experience to guide or manage other people. I have a phrase where I'm when I'm working with other people, wherever I go, you go. Meaning I'm always going to look to take people with me wherever I go or however high I go, right? Because I want the best out of myself. And the only way I can be the best is to have the best people working with me or working for me. And top performers are always going to act like leaders, even if they don't have official leadership positions. This means that they set good examples and they take an interest in the success of others. And one of the things that I will tell you is that when you're someone that takes an interest in the success of others, it only helps you to elevate your own performance and helps you to become a better person in whatever skill you're in. So when a colleague or coworker asks for help, be the person that's happy to assist, and you are going to be a top performer. Top performers, they offer their guidance, they offer support graciously, and they follow through on their commitments, no matter what it takes. And something else, when a superior or your supervisor or your boss is looking for someone to lead a team or manage a product, they're the people who are most likely to volunteer for that position. And number 9, a high performer, really is someone that finds a healthy work-life balance. I can't stress it enough. A healthy work-life balance, represents the way a person prioritizes their professional goals and desires with the desires and aspirations they have for their personal life. Top performers know that they're having a healthy work-life balance and ensuring that they take time for themselves is crucial for establishing sustainable routines and performance outcomes. So, again, if you're going to be a person who is going to be committed to being a high performer or a top performer in your life, in your business or your career, then you're going to be, someone that looks at all of the things that they do, not just some of the things. They're going to focus on making sure that, they're doing the work that they need to do for themselves professionally, but also taking the same commitment and putting it into their personal time as well. And all I can tell you, if you want to be a top performer, then you're consistent in your work ethics. But you also will know when you're not feeling well. Take sick days when you're sick and schedule your vacation time to make sure that you're taking time to recenter or reset. And then even when you're coming out of your vacation time, make sure you're giving yourself time to decompress so that you can go back into your work routines with the balance and the consistency that you had before you took that break. So, as I shared with you some of the top tips and traits of what it looks like to be a high performer, if you're someone that's committed to being that and doing that in the areas that are most important to you, then as I always share and I always invite people, if you're looking to master your skills and take yourself and your performance to the next level, then join us. I invite you to, consider scheduling with one of our top coaches. We'll give you a 30 minutes introductory coaching session for free so that you can actually identify some of the things that are most important to you. And, we can provide you some feedback on how that can go or how quickly you can achieve it if you choose to take that on. But hiring a coach would be in that area of professional development. And again, it's going to be one of the best investments that you can make in yourself, in your professional and your personal goals. Because what I know is that we look at individuals as a whole and we help them to achieve whatever the desired results that they want to achieve, not what we think that they should achieve. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can join or take on a new relationship with a professional coach, you can go to our website, which is www.coach2create.com, coach2create.com. And, again, schedule time with either myself or any one of the folks that we have as associates that can work with you. And, again, I always hope that you enjoy the episodes that we put here on the Jump In with me, Coach John podcast. And if you do, please take the time to like, subscribe, share this with other people. I can't help but get excited every time I see a new subscription come in or how many people are actually out there listening to our podcast, whether it's on the Spotify, iHeartRadio, or even those who listen and watch podcasts. We're also on YouTube. You can find us. And if you want to be someone that gets any questions or you want to be invited to be a part of the show and give us feedback, then you can send us a message, via my Instagram at iCoach, iCoachUplay, or you can email me at iCoachUplay1@gmail.com. And that's iCoachUplay1@gmail.com. And as I wrap up this episode, I just want to thank all of you for taking the time to listen and support and make us a part of your weekly conversation, and if you're excited about what we talked about inside of becoming a high performer, then you just got to know that it's all going to come down to you, listening to this information, taking on those traits, elevating them where you need to elevate. And if you need support, then find that professional like myself or others who can help you get where you want to go. So as I wrap up, I want to thank you again for joining me and listening to this week's episode of the Jump In with me, Coach John podcast. And I want you all to really go forward and create the most positive, most effective weeks that you can, and go win the games that you play.